So now I'm going to give you guys some ideas about what you can do to help the bees. And yes, I did coordinate my outfit with the, just a little bit, the blue shirt there. Yeah, all right. Okay. Yes. Okay, so here's a good idea. If you want to help save the bees, be a good beekeeper. Because if you decide to simply be a beekeeper, you can cause more problems than you actually fix. Simply deciding, I want to save the bees, I'm going to be a beekeeper. You can actually introduce a lot more parasites to other people's colonies as a result of not knowing what to do with your own. Because when your colonies collapse, those bees from your collapsing colony will actually leave with the parasites that killed their colony and go to all the colonies nearby in order to outlive their usefulness as workers. And then they give those parasites to those bees. So be a good beekeeper if you want to help the bees. That organism is public enemy number one. Everyone, you are currently staring into the face of evil. And if you're having a difficult time locating that face, it's right here. It's a weird face because it doesn't have eyes or an easily identifiable mouth. But everyone, that organism is called Varroa destructor. And I promise you, they were not being melodramatic when they named it. This is one crazy parasite. It was introduced into the US in 1987. I had nothing to do with it. I was -2 at the time. But it was a huge issue. There have been a lot of other parasites introduced into the US, and they have caused a lot of problems, but nothing like Varroa destructor. Within 10 years of its introduction, it had wiped out more than 99% of the honeybee colonies that are not being managed by people. So the wild colonies in the US, there was less than 0.1% of them left over within 10 years of the introduction of this organism. It is from Southeast Asia, and it is a crazy creature. There are at least 6 viruses that it's able to transmit to the bees, at least. There are 11 others that are clearly associated with this mite that we have not confirmed its ability to transmit. But we're finding out that we have kind of miscategorized this organism. Because for much of its life cycle, we've been thinking about it as a creature that is a lot less disturbing than it is. We've been thinking about it like, kind of like a little baby vampire. You know, like, it'll bite you, suck out a little bit of blood, life goes on, right? You know, think like a mosquito. Lands on you, small amount of blood removed, you itch a little bit, life goes on. That's how we've been thinking about Varroa for a long time. And the only time when people got concerned is if there was some level of evidence that maybe that Varroa mite had a virus in it. The same way that we think of ticks and mosquitoes. If that tick or that mosquito doesn't have an infection already, we don't really worry about the bite very much. Well, Varroa has proven, my research project on this organism has actually shown for the last 50 years we've been entirely wrong about this organism. It's not feeding on the blood of the bees, it's actually feeding on the flesh of the bees. So it's more like a werewolf than a vampire. This organism is very strange because it goes to the bees, latches onto them, sticks its mouth parts inside, and releases a cocktail of digestive enzymes that actually break down the liver of the bee, and then it sucks that out of the bee's body. So, amend your previous thought of it being like a mosquito that sucks out a little bit of blood. Imagine a mosquito lands on you, sucks out your liver, and flies away. You would probably be a little bit concerned, as would I. This has been really problematic. It's also stimulated a thought process among a lot of beekeepers, and it's the reason why I've been giving so many presentations lately, because people have really been thinking about this. We've had a difficult time controlling this Varroa mite, and maybe one of the reasons why we've had such a tough time controlling this organism is because we've been trying to drive a stake through something for which we needed a silver bullet. Oh, yeah. I'm gonna keep going with that Halloween theme for a moment. But one of the things that it has also helped to remind people is the need to do something about this organism. This is data that was collected by the Bee Informed Partnership, and it has shown that the majority of beekeepers actually don't treat for Varroa. So this is 1 year's worth of data that was showing that about 49% of beekeepers who took the honeybee colony loss survey were actually telling us that they don't do anything to reduce the levels of the mites in their colony. And when we asked them questions about that, they would tell us, I just didn't think that it was a huge concern. I didn't see any mites in my colony. They're actually very difficult to see. They're about a millimeter in size and hang out on the underside of the bees. But a lot of people just kind of gave us this apathetic response of, I didn't really think it was that big of an issue. And they actually are a huge issue. So we're hoping to change that. If you want to help the bees, be a good beekeeper. Manage the mites in your colony, reduce their levels, do something about them before they get so heavy that they destroy the colony. But you can also be a good beekeeper. Oh, and if you need to know more information about how to do that, there's a booklet called Tools for Varroa Management that you can download online. That'll tell you everything you need to know. Pretty cool. But pesticide detections are also something that you should consider. Because what this graph actually shows, so this is the number of samples that were collected, and this is the number of different chemical residues detected inside of a colony. So anywhere from 0 to 13. And a lot of colonies had 0 chemicals detected inside the colony, so that was great. But the majority of colonies had at least 1 detected, and several had a number of different pesticides detected inside the colony. Now, why is that important? One reason why that is hugely important is because our studies are set up to tell you what the lethal amount of a toxin, a single toxin, is to your bees. They can tell you what a lethal dosage is that will kill 50%, 100% of your bees. But pretty much no study can tell you what the lethal dose of a neonicotinoid toxin is in the presence of one of the organic acids or any of the other issues there. Because it takes so many different facets of your study to round up all of the data there. And so very few people have actually shown what 3, 4, 5, 6 different chemicals can do to a colony. At this point, it's a toss-up. We know it's a problem. We just don't know how big of a problem it is. The average colony in the US has about 4 different pesticides present in it at any one time. That's not great. So if you want to be a good beekeeper, some of the things you can also do are to make sure that where you place your bees is an area that is fairly safe for them in terms of the pollen and other things that they will be bringing back to that colony. So the Bee Informed Partnership actually has a good deal of data about this, and it's really interesting because certain crops have a number of different chemicals that are present inside of the pollen. And so onions, if you're going to place your colonies somewhere, it's probably not a good idea for you to place an apiary near a field of onions. Because in order to keep onions growing, there's a lot of fungicides, a lot of things used to keep them alive. Fungicides, herbicides, insecticides, and the colonies that are near these have a number of these different chemicals inside of them. There are things like watermelon and mustards, where if you place your colonies near those fields, you'll be a lot less likely to have your colonies impacted by huge influxes of pesticides. So good beekeeping requires that you pay very close attention to a lot of things. But for those of you who are not beekeepers, I've got an idea for you. Stop mowing your lawn. Can I get somebody to pledge today? Thank you. To stop mowing your lawn. Because first of all, think of all the time you will save. It'll be wonderful for you to not have to go outside and just push that boring little, oh, you might have a riding lawnmower, still boring. None of that. Actually, something much more fun that you can do is just to let it all go. Let it turn into a wonderful meadow, because if you constantly mow your lawn, what you have there is a jade wasteland. All of the bees see that, and it's a food desert for them. That lawn produces nothing of any value to the bees. Do you know why we think that a green lawn is the best thing in the world? Prior to an advertising campaign from a certain group of lawn care pesticides that will not be named, prior to this advertising campaign, people were a lot more likely to allow their lawns to be meadows. But after this advertising campaign, after they impacted the manliness of people in the US by telling them that if you're a real man, there won't be any dandelions on your lawn, people really took that to heart. And a lot of gentlemen decided they were going to do everything they could to make sure there was not a thing of any color but green on their lawns. But hopefully we're realizing now that that was a terrible idea because it hasn't helped anyone. It has simply exacerbated issues with nutrition in our bees. Our bees need a diverse host of plants in order to get the nutrition that they need in order to do what they need to do. This is what you really want. I love this every time I look at it. I have some friends that I have I love hanging out at their house because this giant pollinator garden that they have on every inch of their lawn pretty much is just breathtaking. I would go out there and observe the different pollinators doing their thing and just imagine being able to get up close and personal with a pollinator every Saturday morning. There was a time where this was my thing. Just every Saturday morning, watching the pollinators go to all of these different flowers, collect pollen, collect nectar, and it's not as difficult as you may think. Now, some people think, how would I ever know all the flowers to use? Cheerios even got it wrong. What am I gonna do? You guys heard about that, right? They gave people packets of seeds and a bunch of them were, you didn't hear about this? In the Cheerios guys, they love bees, right? Even though the thing on the front of their box is like, not a honeybee, but it's always swinging honey around. Anyway, it's weird. But they gave these packets of seeds away with Honey Nut Cheerios, and most of the seeds were not for native plants, which was problematic. But you guys aren't going to make that mistake because there is a wonderful website. The Xerces Society actually publishes this huge list of all of the different native flowers that you can plant in an area to attract a host of different pollinators. So if you were feeling overwhelmed by the idea of trying to get a pollinator garden that is every bit as diverse as this one, I just want to let you know that that's just about how it starts. Individuals go online, they figure out what flowers they can use, and if you look closely, there is a pollinator on every square inch of this. There are bumblebees, bees of every stripe, every kind, all over these flowers, hummingbirds, all kinds of different butterflies. It's wonderful. And all of this can be yours for the price of not mowing your lawn. Support pollinator research. Now, this is something that absolutely everyone can do. Pollinators need our help. And one of the ways that we can help them is by learning more about the problems that are causing their decline. And you can help us by either supporting directly pollinator research or making sure that the individuals that you elect to office at any of the levels of office don't have anything in their ideas of governance where they make it clear to you that they're going to cut research for these. I mean, these are our honeybees. We love our honeybees. There are honeybees on the White House lawn because they are so important. We love our native bees too. And as we start to see the budget for research go down and down and down, it can be very frightening to researchers to think, I might actually have to fund this project out of my own pocket. Speaking of, you can fund projects by being creative yourself. This young lady is named Michaela Ulmer. She was on Shark Tank, I think 2, maybe 3 years ago. When she was, how old was she, 8? Was she 11 now? She's a small business owner. She sells her product to Whole Foods, and it's called Bee Sweet Lemonade. She makes lemonade that is sweetened with honey, and she donates a portion of the proceeds from every bottle to honeybee research. So she can do it. Yeah. And there are literally researchers out here attempting to fund projects out of their own pocket. It is ridiculous. I just randomly selected one to let you guys know that Researchers are literally doing this. There is something out now called the Fight the Mite Initiative, because all the scary things that I told you about Varroa destructor, there is a worse parasite still in Southeast Asia now that is destroying colonies of bees, and very little money and effort is actually going to study this organism. And the reason that I keep hearing is that it's not here yet. And it's already started spreading around the world, and it's reached an area, it's moved into the Middle East, and we know at about the time where Varroa destructor had moved into the Middle East, it was only 15 more years before it moved into the US. And so the clock is probably already ticking down, and we do need to spend some time thinking about this. So I spent some time in Thailand. I spent about 3 months at the end of my thesis research digging colonies out of the ground, because Apis cerana, some of the Asian honeybees will actually nest in the ground. We would pull frames of bees out of the ground so that we could look at their parasite loads and better understand how these native bees are dealing with these issues. We were also able to go to the Thai temples and take bees from their colonies. They actually donated them to us so that we could do everything we could to study this organism and make sure that we could help. So, fight the mite, guys, because we can win. Yeah. Thank you very much. So that was only 3 months of research at the time. There is still more research to be done. So if you guys actually want to put that kind of thing into action, I'm actually still collecting funds for that project. And there are several different ways, but if you were to visit that GoFundMe page, you can donate to it too. So, what can you do? Just to recap, don't forget about the native pollinators. They need our help too. Remember to be a good beekeeper should you decide to be a beekeeper. If you decide not to be a beekeeper, stop cutting your grass. You don't need to. Reduce your usage of lawn pesticides, which, I mean, not cutting your grass is part of that whole process as well. And remember to plant pollinator-friendly native plants whenever possible. Support pollinator research, and remember to stay informed. What can you do? A whole heck of a lot. Thank you very much for your time and attention.